Yo, what's good with you? Back in black with another Enlisted video. If you guys are new to the channel and you love shooting games just like me, make sure you aim for that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. At least I hope so. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at all the BR2 light machine guns for the Germans and the Italians and Enlisted to see which of them is the best for you and your particular playstyle. Coming up first, we'll be taking a look at the MG13, which is the light machine gun that was developed by converting the heavy water-cooled Dracy Model 1918 machine gun into a lighter air-cooled weapon that was light enough to be carried by a singular soldier. They even have a premium squad in the game that features this weapon with a drum magazine, but neither here nor there. This weapon was introduced in 1930, but eventually was phased out 5 years later by the superior MG34 and 42. Once World War II started, they brought the MG13 out of storage and gave it to primarily defensive or lesser quality units since it was easy to handle and reload the weapon. Getting into the stats, we're getting a maximum damage of 12 flat, which is pretty standard for most machine guns, and subsequently the same damage for all the competitors we have coming up today, so I won't be mentioning it again, but do keep that in mind. Out to 100 meters we'll be going down to a maximum of 10.8 per shot, so still pretty good, enough to kill somebody outright or down most soldiers if you hit them at least once in the chest and avoid the arm and leg shots. Big reason you'll want to make sure you make all those shots count is because unlike the premium version of this weapon, we're only getting a very sad 25 bullets per reload, and if you can believe it, that is actually the highest mag size in the tier, so trying to make all your shots count will be a reoccurring theme presented to you. Speaking of highest in the tier, our reload time on the MG13 is also best at 3.1 seconds, but I will add the caveat that it's only winning by 0.1 seconds, so damn near unnoticeable. Bullet velocity is also tied for first place at 750 meters per second, so you can stretch this weapon out a good deal without having to do too much shot leading. But don't get too happy trying to shoot people across the map with this thing, because along with the lower mag size, you're also getting a worse than tier shot deviation at 38. Something that is not the worst, not the best, but sitting pretty in the middle is going to be the rate of fire, coming in at a base of 600 rounds per minute. And for some, that might be a great thing, as we don't always need a faster fire rate, since that directly affects the recoil, which in this case is going to be coming in at a vertical stat of 28, which is best in the tier, and a horizontal stat of 20, which is tied for first. In my humble opinion, I know those stats don't look that bad on paper, but since the typical machine gun only has a recoil control stat of 10%, they're usually really quick to pull your aim one way or another without lots of counter control, and the MG13 has some crazy zigzagging from a horizontal aspect, so much so that the only real advice that I can give you to combat it is pulling down substantially, or I guess a good deal, on your apparatus of choice before you even start shooting, to keep those bullets grouped as tightly as possible. Aside from that, I strongly recommend mounting up or going prone, playing into the weapon's usage and lore, if that makes any sense. Aside from that, I would also like to mention that this is the heaviest machine gun in the tier at 13 kilograms, further showing that this is meant for a defensive minded player due to the heightened stamina drain, which makes it harder to aim with. Speaking of aiming, the MG13 has arguably the best iron sights in the tier. I had no difficulty using them whatsoever, and if not for the bad shot deviation, or maybe if this was a bolt action rifle, I could basically say that I would almost never miss if I could help it with this weapon. Very enjoyable to use, and I guess if you want to make it feel more like a rifle, I would be remiss not to mention the fact that you can also put this weapon in semi-auto firing mode as well, so that's nice. Coming up for our second contestant of the day, we shall now take a look at the standard light machine gun of the Italian army, namely the Breda Model 30, which has a mixed real-life reputation at best, with many reports of jamming and overheating in Africa or freezing in Russia. Damage is the same like I said earlier in the video, but unfortunately we are getting a tier worse bullet velocity at 630 meters per second, and for added context, that lower number basically means you have to do more shot leading for horizontally moving targets in comparison to the MG13 and our last competitor. Sticking to the real life reports on this weapon, we are also unfortunately getting a lower fire rate at a tier worse 480 rounds per minute, which is on par with the MP38 and the M3A1 grease gun. Basically a chugger of a weapon, if you will. The silver lining with the slower rate of fire is that you will be able to conserve your lower magazine, which is coming in at an even worse 20 rounds per reload, so one could surmise that you will be reloading more often than you would be with the MG13, and that reload will also be a smidge worse than the best stat at a tier worse 3.2 seconds, so you won't be missing out on much. Ironically, despite the bad stats thus far for the Breda, it does have the best in tier shot deviation at 36, so that is something to keep an eye on. Speaking of trying to keep an eye on something, you may find that hard to do than you would with most weapons, as we are getting a vertical recoil stat of 33, which is middle of the pack, and a horizontal recoil stat of 22, which is worse than the tier. I think they do a profoundly good job translating how bad the horizontal recoil is into the game, as basically when I shoot this weapon, it'll pull me extremely hard to the left. I'll reload and then I'll shoot again, and then it'll pull me extremely hard to the right. So basically it is impossible to predict any type of pattern with this recoil, aside from the fact that it's going to be very violent, and essentially it boils down to the simple fact that you need to mount up or go prone with this weapon even more so than you need to do so with the MG13. If you're not mounted up, the best that I could really recommend to you as far as countering the recoil is going to be to preemptively pull moderately downward on your apparatus of choice. That way you can kind of keep your bullets grouped as close as possible without having your aim fly all over the place, because if you don't do any type of countering, then you're going to have a really bad time using this weapon. And what's worse, that statement that I just made, you can basically multiply that times 3 if you're using the weapon at base level. But neither here nor there. In regard to the iron sights on the Breda Mod 30, I was heavily debating putting them between slightly above average and good, but they do get the job done at most ranges, and I find them to be pretty open and nice to use. The only thing that I can say that I don't like about it is that it is kind of bulky in comparison to the sharper looking MG13 iron sight, but I won't complain too much because I can still use it pretty effectively. The last thing that I would like to mention on this weapon is the weight, as that is tied for lightest in the tier at 10 kilograms. So basically you can use this or our last competitor if you are more of the mobile machine gunner that likes to run around, and you know, basically if you're on the attacking team as well. Coming up for our last contestant of the day, and maybe it's least, maybe it's first best, or maybe it's second. Not too sure into the conclusion, but I do know we are now talking about the ZB-26, which is a famous precursor light machine gun made in the 1920s that saw service with many countries and developed a reputation for its reliability, quick change components, ease of manufacturing, and having a really good bipod as well. I say precursor because this weapon directly influenced the invention of the Bren LMG and the Type 97 from one of my more recent videos. Aside from all that though, the damage remains the same and we're getting a bullet velocity that is tied for first at 750 meters per second. Where things start to get a little more unique is that we're going to be getting the highest rate of fire in the tier at 750 rounds per minute as well. Honestly, I like that number, but I'll be the first to say that this might be a little too fast of a gun since we're also only getting 20 bullets per magazine with this one. It sucks because doing my research I saw that the ZB-26 did have a 30 round box magazine as well, but I guess the devs felt like that would be overkill if they put it in the game. Anyways, our reload speed on the ZB-26 is nothing crazy, tying the Breda Model 30 at a tier worth 3.2 seconds, but when you consider that higher rate of fire, you'll definitely be reloading with this one the most, so I highly recommend those reload perks for your soldier, and of course upgrading the weapon if you plan on using it extensively. The shot deviation is in the middle of the pack at 37, which I'm sure you guys have noticed by now that on each of these weapons they either go up or down by 1 on this stat, so not a huge difference overall. Just something to pay attention to if you want to choose the gun that has the tightest grouping on the bullets. Recoil on the ZB-26 has a vertical stat of 35, which is worse than the tier, and then they have a horizontal recoil stat of 20, which is tied for the best. But unlike the first two machine guns that we talked about already, this one actually has a predictable recoil pattern that consistently goes upward a moderate amount, and then it pulls slightly to the left as well. And when you consider the fact that it's always going to be easier to control vertical recoil in comparison to horizontal recoil, the fact that you just gotta pull down slightly on this weapon and then you're always going to have to adjust for a leftward pull instead of like getting a randomized horizontal recoil like the other two machine guns, it just makes this one, I would say in my personal opinion, the easiest to control, and if I had to choose one. But that's not to say that I wouldn't recommend going prone or mounting this weapon. It's still something that you would see great benefit and great dividends from, so make sure you do that whenever you get the chance. When it comes to how much the weapon weighs, the ZB-26 is tied with the Breda Model 30 at 10 kilograms, so like I was saying for the Breda, feel free to use this weapon as your offensively minded LMG squad weapon of choice, or basically use this one if you prefer to have more stamina, or if you don't feel like spending your perk points on stamina and you spend it on something else instead. Lastly, I gotta say for the iron sights on the ZB-26, they can only be average at best due to the simple detriment that we are dealing with a top-loaded magazine which obstructs a good portion of your screen. But something you can do that wastes less bullets, I guess in general, since it's going to be harder to see people, is that you can put the weapon in semi-automatic fire, so that might help you conserve some of your bullets since you're going to have a little bit of a harder time acquiring your targets when you're aiming and shooting multiple people at the same time. Overall, these three machine guns do have a fair amount of similarities that can make it hard to choose which one is the best for a newer average player, but if you'll allow me to feed you an opinion from somebody who has over 50,000 machine gun kills, I can comfortably put the Breda Model 30 in last place. Although it has the best shot deviation in the tier, it has the worst bullet velocity, the worst rate of fire, and the worst recoil in my humble opinion as well. You would be much better served and get much better use out of our second place winner, which is going to be the ZB-26. And although that one has the worst iron sights by comparison, I believe the better recoil pattern, which is more predictable, and the better stats in general should allow you to fare better, along with the higher rate of fire in case you run into large groups of enemies, which should make them easier to dispatch at close range. And even if you find the fire rate to be a little bit too much, you can still put the weapon in semi-auto mode for more versatility, which is something that the Breda cannot do at all. And then of course for first place, we have to go with the MG13 due to having the best iron sights in the tier. And although the recoil pattern might not be as good as the ZB-26, on the flip side of that, you get an extra 5 bullets in the magazine, which can net you at least another 2 to 3 kills before you have to reload. And yeah, basically whenever you're in a situation where you're mounted up, I would say this one is actually the best performing out of all three. And I'm sure that a lot of you will appreciate the extra bullets in a tier where, you know, nobody really likes to have 20 bullets on their machine gun. But at the end of the day, I will throw in that these are just my personal opinions. I am hoping with the combination of my gameplay and my explanations, you can decide for yourself which machine gun at BR2 for the Western Axis is best for you to spend your silver on and upgrade over and over again. If you guys made it this far in the video, let me know which of these machine guns is your favorite down in the comment section. And I do appreciate you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to aim for that like button, shoot that subscribe button as well. Help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. And yeah, got a little bit of extra gameplay at the end for you guys, about 2 minutes, gonna let that play out. And yeah, hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Black Guy out.